right, welcome everyone to book club tonight. Sorry, I have been missing. I don't even know why now, but I guess it doesn't matter because I'm here today. So 2020 ended and I survived. And I'll be honest, I'm too tired for resolutions. So it didn't happen this year. And I've decided I'm going to live a year one day at a time. I'm going to just wake up and decide what's going to work for me today. And I think that means I'm knowingly sacrificing strategy and long-term planning and maybe goals, maybe accountability even, not really sure, maybe. Instead, I want a year to see possibilities and every week to have intentions, but no requirements, no rules, no mandates, no metrics for accountability, no comprehensive exams or quizzes. Same goes for my reading. I don't want to limit myself. I want to read whatever I want. I want to enjoy it. I want to allow myself to start a book and recognize if I don't like it, I don't need to finish it. I don't want to have to suffer. I don't want to feel like someone's going to challenge me on how well I understood it, or if I notice a mind-numbing literary device, or if I, look smart on my Goodreads list, or decide, if it's a good enough book for me or not. Everyone deserves to read whatever they want, and we must all take time to develop the skill to learn what that means, and to become a reader who knows how to make themselves happy with the books that they pick, instead of letting other people pick books for them or tell them what to think. So I remember once when I was a librarian at a high school, an 18-year-old male came up to me like he did about every 2 weeks and said, okay, what should I read now? And of course it filled me with lots of pride. Like, this kid loves what I pick out for him. He's like, every book you pick is something I like. And finally one week I kind of had it and I said, you know what, you're about ready to fly away. And I wouldn't have done my job if you're going to go out into the world and don't know how to walk into anywhere and find a book you want. So I'm not picking one for you this week. And so he had to pick his own book. Hopefully that worked out well for him. Maybe, I don't remember. So sometimes good things happen to us because we set goals and resolutions, and then we make deadlines and we march forward and we make those things a reality. And sometimes good things happen because we learn to stop, and we learn to pause, and we learn to figure out what makes us happy, and we learn to find books we like, and we need places to find ourselves. So this year I've taken time to read and find myself and be happy every day and read whatever the fuck I want. So tonight I'm going to talk about 4 books I found today. I walked in the library, the public library at lunch. I walked around and I grabbed 4 books. It was like a moonshot day in the library that interested me. So in my 2 minutes, I'm going to do what I would do as a librarian when a box of new books landed at my desk and I hadn't read any of them, and kids want to check them out faster than I can get them ready. So I'm going to jump in on next, right, people? Okay, so I'll show you how I would talk about how we find a book we want, how we find possibilities and intentions. So this book is called The Last Confession of Autumn Casterly by Meredith Tate. And this is a mystery. It's a haunting story where there's 2 sisters, and one of them's a good girl and one of them's kind of a bad girl. And they don't really get along, they don't really hang out, but they have a really strong connection. So when Autumn goes missing because she got wrapped up in a drug deal gone bad, she's able to summons her sister Ivy to come find her. So I think this one's going to be awesome. The other one that I think is going to be awesome, and public libraries piss me off here, but Home Remedies. And it is a collection of stories by Zhuang Juliana Wang. She's born in China, grew up and then moved and grew up in LA. So it's kind of being hailed as a good collection of voices for youth, for Chinese American immigration stories. So it's called Home Remedies. And then this one isn't as new as the other ones. It's 2015, and I cannot believe I didn't see it before. But Jodi Picoult, I used to read a lot of her books. She's an adult author, but this looks like a collaboration with young adult author Samantha Van Leer, and it's called Off the Page. And it's a folktale kind of retelling, and it's beautiful. Remember last time when I said, it's a fantasy because you get to move and find this map, so you're somewhere else. It's one of those. And this is one of the things I would teach kids, okay, so look at the cover. Yes, judge a book by its cover. People pay a lot of money to appeal to you. Read the back, sure. Read the dust jacket, sure. But the deal is the first page is really the first thing the author does. So the first sentence says, just because you've picked up this book, doesn't mean it belongs to you. What? And then every other chapter is in either green or blue font. And there's other art paintings in between. So I'm super excited for off the page. And then the last one is Dealing in Dreams by Lilian Rivera. She wrote The Education of Margot Sanchez. So she's a badass, kick-ass Hispanic Latino author. And this is one of her newer books. And one of the things I would also teach kids to learn how to understand what book they like is if you look at this title detail information in this page. This one tells you the Library of Congress catalog subject heading is science fiction. So this is and it's 16-year-old Nala leads a fierce all-girl crew in a mega city. So it's like a girl kind of warrior, military, futuristic science fiction story. And Margot Sanchez was a real good realistic fiction story. So that's really different for the author. So that's it. Those are my books that I intend to consider this week. Who's next?
I think I'm next. Am I next? I must be next. I'm next. Okay. Hi. Welcome. Hi. Welcome to 2021. Still feels like 2020. My kids call it 2020 over because it doesn't really feel like it's changed very much. But I'm going to present screen because I read a book called Mexican Gothic. When I read this book, I looked at it and I said, okay, so I'm a literature major and all that, but what the heck is a Gothic exactly? So I'm going to show you, hopefully you can see as soon as it loads. There's a title. There's the cover of the novel. It's really a pretty cool cover. It's written by a Hispanic author, Silvia Moreno Garcia. And Gothic, actually, what I found, has these general characteristics: atmosphere, setting, virgin in distress, clergy, supernatural, melodrama, and there are omens. I'm happy to report that Mexican Gothic covers 6 out of 7 of these categories. So, setting and house, check. It is set in 1950s Mexico at a rundown manor called High Place in a very gloomy part of the Mexican countryside. Virgin in distress, check and check. There are 2. Well, one's not really a virgin, but anyway, there are 2. There are 2 girls. The first girl has married a man who lives in this rundown manor, and she's written her family back in wherever they are saying, things are not quite right here. So the family sends another girl to go rescue her, and that is our protagonist. Her name is Noemi. So she goes to rescue her cousin at this High Place house. Male villain, check. The cousin has married a man named Doyle, that's his last name, and I'll let you just figure out that he's probably the villain. Clergy, no, there wasn't really clergy, a weak, evil clergy person, but there was kind of a suspicious doctor. And supernatural, absolutely. There are ghosts, there's a cemetery, there's the obligatory creepy vines, and there are some mushrooms. Go no further. That's it. They're mushrooms. Melodrama and high emotion. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, the heroine is overcome with emotion quite a bit. And it's not quite as believable as I would like, but it's still there. Omens, portents, and visions. Oh, yes, they're all there. In fact, go back to mushrooms, and I will say no more about the omens, portents, and visions because they involve the mushrooms. So all in all, I loved it. It was kind of a Wuthering Heights sort of setting, set in Mexico. It had some historical and cultural details, which were great. And I really, really wanted to give it like a 5, but I couldn't because about a third of the way through it, I went, I'm bored. The character was a little bit like that. Maybe that was that melodrama and high passion, but I didn't quite believe her. And there was a romance that she was involved with, and I didn't quite believe that either. Just a warning, there's quite a bit of gore in there. So if you like that kind of thing in your Gothic novels, you'll get it. Let's go back to that mushroom part. You wouldn't believe it, but yes, they end up being a little bit gory. But all in all, I think it's worth reading, especially if you like those Gothic novels. I gave it about a 3.5. So if you're into it, go check it out, Mexican Gothic. And I think I'm passing it over to Misty.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen because what I read is actually, I read it on a Kindle and it was a little bit different. But I've been struggling lately, and Heather kind of touched upon this, about this idea of intentions. And I have felt really guilty because I have not really read as much as I normally do. And I feel some sort of guilt for that. And I'm not sure why. And I've read things that other people are like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever that I've ever read in my life. You should read this. You have to read this. And I'm like, do I really have to read it? Do I really? And am I a bad person if I don't like what I read? And so I've been struggling with that. And so Heather she set her intentions for the year. And I wrote down in my book, I'm going to read what I enjoy. And I've decided, damn it to hell with everything else. I don't know. I'm just going to enjoy it. And if I'm not into it in 50 pages, I'm going to stop. I'm not going to waste my time, because my friend Heather has always told me that life is too short to read a book that you don't like. And so when reading for enjoyment, I think we all have to remember that. So as I was in my little bit of a reading rut, I came across this collection in Amazon. And what it is, it's called the Far Away collection. And it's Amazon original stories. So they're short stories. They're like 33, 35 pages. The Princess Game is a little bit longer. And the cool thing is, I'm a Prime member of Amazon, so I got to read them for free. And you can listen to them for free if you're a Prime Amazon member. So I was able to read some of them, but then when I was just like tired of reading, because you know how looking at the screen all day, I was able to listen to them. And these 5 stories are fairy tale retellings, because you know how I love those fairy tale retellings, but they're put in current times, current day, and they're written by some popular young adult authors. So I'm not going to go over and talk about all of them. It's just the titles are The Prince and the Troll, Princess and the Troll, Hazel and Gray, focusing on Hansel and Gretel. That was a very interesting one because it is about, if you know the story of Hansel and Gretel, how they get lost in the woods and the witch gets them and so forth. This one is about kidnapping and abductions. And these are not your happily ever after fairy tales in a lot of ways. These actually harken very much to the original Grimm tellings, where they had a dark side. Hazel and Gray is one of the ones with a dark side. And the Princess Game was my favorite. The Princess Game is all about the princes who are in this popular club in high school, and these girls start getting murdered and they are staged like the fairy tales. And so it's a whodunit mystery. And the end, I was like, I see what you did. All right. The Cleaners is really more about memories, and 2 sisters are deciding, is it worth keeping a memory that hurts or a bad memory, or should we have the ability to wipe it? Do we learn from those, or do they hinder our growth? And The Wickeds was my absolute favorite because it takes the 3 stepmothers from fairy tales. It takes Mother Gothel from Rapunzel, takes the evil queen from Snow White, and it takes Cinderella's stepmother. And it tells the story of the Wickeds as they're known, and it gives their perspectives. And one thing I really like about that story, it's by Gail Forman, in case you've read If I Stay, is that The Wickeds is really a tale about perspective. And I think that is something that we really need to think about in our world today, is looking at all different sides of something and knowing that one story is never just the one side of the story, that there's always other sides to it. And The Wickeds does a great job of that. And it was heart-wrenching because it's a mother-daughter story. And so if you have Prime, go for it. Download these, listen to them. You can read them even if you don't have Amazon Prime, but your time will not be wasted unless you don't like fairy tales. And then it might be wasted. Who knows? But I love them, and I give them 4 out of 5 stars, at least as a whole. And so now on to my friend, Amanda.
Hey guys, I am happy to report that it was time for Bookish and the Beast, the next installment of the Once Upon a Con books. And it is by far the best. And I know that I'm not the only one here who Beauty and the Beast is their favorite fairy tale, and this retelling is actually pretty good. And I say pretty good just because it has kind of what all the Once Upon a Con books has, which is kind of like unbelievable coincidences, which kind of sometimes holds me back, but I have to just give it up to Ashley posting because sometimes coincidences happen. So Bookish and the Beast takes place a year after The Princess and the Fangirl, and it's about Rosie. And Rosie is our main character. She lives in North Carolina, and she meets a mysterious man when she is at the con the previous year. And she just can't get over him. She just can't get over this mysterious man that she met. And coincidence upon coincidence, it is the let me take a step back because I forgot one of the most important parts. The sequel to Starfield is coming out, and all the fans are so excited for the sequel to the movie Starfield. If you guys remember from Geekerella, the first one was coming out, and the villain is General Zod, who is played by Hollywood bad boy Vance Raines, and he gets into some trouble, and so he has to be banished to this castle in North Carolina. Happens to be the same town that Rosie lives in, and coincidence upon coincidence, it was Vance Raine that she had met at the con the year before. And of course, their paths meet. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but the thing that's really cool about Bookish and the Beast is actually Rosie loves Starfield, like all the books. Starfield plays a huge role, but she doesn't love Starfield, the show. She's connected to the series of books that was released about Starfield. And we haven't learned that yet about this world, that there was a whole series of books that that were attached to the movie series or to the TV series. And Rosie has a connection to them because her passed away mother and her used to read them. And that's what's kind of cool about this book, is it explores the same fandom of Starfield, but it's a different shoot off of that. So it's not about the TV shows for her, it's about the book series. And so she has to help organize this library, and her and Vance become closer and closer. And you also have, of course, Garrett, who is our Gaston character, who is madly in love with Rosie for reasons unknown, but he will not leave her alone until she promises to go to homecoming with him. And so it's a great book, and there's lots of different love stories, and it definitely is the best one of the Once Upon a Con series. So pick it up. And of course, these do kind of stand alone, but they're not as much fun. Like, you could read this without reading the others and still enjoy it, but it's just not as much fun. So I recommend all of them. This one definitely is the best one, though. Thanks, guys. I'm going to hand it over to Steve.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hope we all had a nice winter break, and we're getting back into swing of things with the second semester. And before you know it, we'll get back in our regular semester routine, and we'll start hopefully getting to read more. So you guys know me. Most common genre I pick is realistic fiction. So I picked up The Black Kids. It's a debut novel by Christina Hammonds Reed. And even though it's a debut novel for her, this really comes off as an experienced writer who's just has a way with words. The prose is very well crafted. She's an experienced writer, but this is her first published novel. So it is the story of Ashley Bennett, a senior in high school living in Los Angeles. It kind of opens with everything seems like she has the idyllic life, and she feels like that infallible teenager. She's in with all the popular kids. Her family is well off, considering, and she's just hanging out. Like, she ditches school a lot, hangs out and kind of a poolside with her friends. Everything seems like she's got the world in her hands, right? This takes place in 1992, right before the LA riots are going to happen. So this is what drew me into the book, because what drew me into the book, sorry about that. What drew me into the book was I was in middle school when the LA riots happened. So I thought, this seems like an interesting premise. What it's like as an American teenager growing up while this happens. Well, it really covers everything: race, class, coming of age, young Black girl figuring out her identity from a girl into womanhood. She has an older sister who's a little more progressive than her, who's dating someone their family doesn't approve of. She's more involved in social justice, whereas Ashley and her parents have kind of like assimilated more into upper class and stuff. So there's that complexity of those race issues. She's one of the only Black kids at her school. She's starting to, as the book opens, kind of question, where does she really fit in? And then the riots happen, and that kind of explodes everything. And now she's questioning if she really fits in with her friends. Rumor starts to go around about like the only other Black guy in the school, and she's always felt weird about that because everybody just assumes that they're friends because they're the two Black kids. So she starts feeling, questioning her friends and her identity while like the city deals with the riots, while she's figuring out she really agree with the way her mom wants to raise their kids to like assimilate more or to find their own voice as Black women. This is just a great book. It's definitely up the alley if you are a fan of The Hate U Give and stuff like that. So I give this like a 4 out of 5, and I'm going to pass it on to Katie. Thank you.
Hello. Happy 2021. I'm giggling because in the chat we were talking about where we all were in 1992. And some of us were in different places than we were. Some of us were in pre-K and some of us were graduating high school. So, this just goes to show you the beauty of book club and the beauty of reading brings people together from, we all chose the same profession, but we all, have different life experiences, come from different places in our life and times. So just had to share that little bit of side chatter going on with you. We don't often share what's going on over in the side chat because sometimes we can't, but, it's just helping prove our point like we do in book club. So I am picking today to talk about book 2 of a book I talked about earlier or later in 2020. I think it was about October, where I chose the book, The Babysitter's Coven by Kate Williams. So that was book 1 of this series. It establishes these characters, Esme and Cassandra, who are part of a long line of esteemed sitters. And sitters are born with kinesis and they're born with powers, and they are tasked with protecting the world, and particularly protecting the young kids that they are babysitting wherever they may live. So think like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets the Babysitter's Club is sort of where book 1 starts us. So book 2 just came out in December, and book 2 is called For Better or Cursed by Kate Williams. So For Better or Cursed sees us, Esme and Cassandra, and their Amanda, help me out. The ones that are in charge of the council, right? Their version of the Watcher, if you've watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yes? No? Probably? I don't know. That's the grown-ups in charge of the upcoming sitters. They're in charge of their teaching. Their teacher's name is Brian, and Brian tells Esme and Cassandra, look, we're hosting the summit this year in our small Kansas town, and you have to throw the party. So Esme and Cassandra are in charge of starting this big party for the summit, which brings hundreds and hundreds of other sitters from around the country and around the world to their small town in Kansas for this big sort of conference that they have every decade. So Esme and Cassandra get to meet sitters from New York. Oh, there's one character, her name is Amira, and she's the classic, like, oh my God, my toothbrush is worth $300 and I left it in the room. I need you to come get it for me. Classic rich girl from New York. So they're meeting all these brand new characters, but things are not always as they seem, and that is ever the case in small town Kansas where these girls live. The city is supposed to be protected while the summit is here because all the sitters are here. They can't keep watch over their own towns. Demons start to show up and start terrorizing Esme and Cassandra, as they are also trying to get to the bottom of why Cassandra was cursed on Halloween, and she is acting super strange. So on top of that, Esme is dealing with her mom's own curse. We find out at the end of book 1 that her mom has been cursed by what's called red magic. In this novel is sort of their version of evil magic. Esme's dad hasn't paid the bills. Esme's dog Pig has run out of food. Esme's lying to her best friend. So it is a very sort of teen angsty, my problems are really terrible and they keep stacking on top of one of each other sort of novel. It reads a little bit like a second book in a trilogy, but I love it. This series is so good. I'm not quite done. I'm almost at the end, but it's pop, and you don't have to be super, hip to the jive that the kids are saying these days to understand the cool kid references in here. It harkens back to the Babysitter's Club when you watch it. If you're a big fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, like I said, this is the same sort of camp that shows up in there. So I'm excited to see how all of the shenanigans, the curses and the demons get controlled. There's also a boy who gets involved. His name is Asher, and he's very dreamy, and he loves all the same music that Esme loves, and they're so very socially outcast, so they sort of attach, but he's a little suspicious. He's come with the summit. We don't really know, or he's come with the synod. Thank you, Amanda, to the summit. We don't know who he is. Intrigue will unfold in the last part of this novel. So I still recommend this series, The Babysitter's Coven, 4 out of 5. Hopefully we'll get a book 3 probably later this year. Fingers crossed, maybe 2022. So that concludes for us, my friends, my constant listeners, my fearless troop of book readers along with me today. That's our first episode of 2021. Woo! So we went through some shit in 2020. Let's just call it what it is. And the books that we read and chose sort of reflect all the darkness and all of the shadows and demons we all had to fight in 2020, whatever they were, right? We picked, we have the Gothic genre full of ghosts and mystery, right? We have fairy tales, both shiny and new, and sort of hearkening back to the classic Grimm's fairy tales. We have darker stories. We have ones about more adapted fairy tales. We've got the perceptions of our world are not always as they seem. Somebody who you may see in a book or out in the street may have the perfect life that looks like to you, but your perception is not the same as theirs, and their life could be falling apart. But the other thing that I noticed in our book choices for today is that the books we chose also help us see the light at the end of the tunnel. It helps us see the silver lining on the darkness and the dark things that we have to go through. And that's why we choose reading, right? That's why we've set our intentions this year to choose and read whatever we damn well please. Especially, I personally am somebody, if you tell me, I thought of this when Misty and Heather were talking earlier, but I think of this as if somebody says, oh my God, you have to read this new book. You have to watch this new TV show. I can't believe you haven't seen this. That personally makes me want to read it even less. That makes me want to watch that show even less, because if you tell me I have to do something, especially if it's something that I love, like reading and watching movies and TV shows, I don't want to do it because I have to. I read books because I want to. I read books because I love to read books. So don't tell me I have to do anything. And that's the vibe we're taking into 2021. So again, that's it for us, friends. That is the first episode of 2021. If you have a book you want to recommend to us, leave us a comment in the video below on our YouTube channel or on our Instagram or on our Twitter, which can all be found at our website, which is foreveryoungadult.com. The number 4, not the word 4, foreveryoungadult.com. Have a good week. Happy almost Friday. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks for our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
May the peace be with you.